I know we've all been to a McDonald's at some point in our lives, but this particular visit was unlike any other. Like most people, I've frequented McDonald's countless times, though I do my best to stick to a healthy diet. But as fate would have it, one late night after an exhausting shift at work, I found myself craving those irresistible McDonald's French fries. It was past 11 o'clock, and my options were limited. That's when I spotted a McDonald's sign on the side of the road. I had initially planned to cook at home, but my hunger won the battle. This McDonald's was different from the ones I usually visited. It was located somewhere in between my workplace and home. As I entered the parking lot, I noticed something strange. There were no cars in the drive-thru. That was great news for a quick meal, or so I thought. However, when I reached the drive-thru speaker, I was met with a piece of paper taped to it. The message was clear. The drive-thru was out of order, and I had to go inside. I decided to enter the restaurant. As I approached the door, I attempted to push it open, but it was locked. Just as I realized this, I heard rustling nearby and witnessed two men emerging from behind bushes. Panic began to set in. One of the men shouted at me to stay where I was. Instinctively, I started to back away. Fear coursed through me as I fled towards my car. But I felt a vice-like grip on my shoulder, and I tumbled to the ground. Somehow, I managed to break free and scramble back into my car. I locked the doors as the man attempted to force his way in. Meanwhile, the other man ran towards another parked car nearby. What happened next shocked me to the core. The man inside the other car suddenly reversed and rammed into the back of my car, causing significant damage. Desperate to escape, I put my car in drive and veered over the curb and onto the grass. Thankfully, my SUV had four-wheel drive, which allowed me to maneuver better than their standard vehicles. As the man continued to chase me, the other assailant jumped into his car. I was terrified, but I wasn't ready to give up. I made sharp turns at every opportunity, trying to lose them. My heart raced as I finally realized they weren't following me anymore. I dialed 911, breathless and shaken, doing my best to explain the situation. Fortunately, the men struggled to follow me as I made my escape, which gave me some much-needed space. Eventually, I was pulled over by a police officer who had heard about the incident and noticed my damaged car. I recounted the entire terrifying ordeal to the officer. In the end, I made it home safely, but my car was totaled and had to be towed to a repair shop. Looking back on that night, I still can't comprehend the mindset of those men who tried to attack me. It's a reminder that danger can strike when you least expect it. Needless to say, I haven't visited that particular McDonald's since. Last year, I found myself at a McDonald's in California. It was a typical evening around 9 o'clock, and I was craving a Big Mac and some fries. Surprisingly, the restaurant was eerily quiet for that time of night. As I entered, I couldn't help but notice an electronic touchscreen for ordering. Intrigued, I walked over and tapped it to get started. I began scrolling through the menu, selecting the items I wanted. Everything seemed normal until out of the blue, the screen suddenly went black for a moment. When it came back to life, there was an odd line on the screen, almost as if it were damaged or cracked. It was certainly strange, but I figured it was still functional. So I continued with my order. Just seconds later, the screen went black again. And this time, something truly unsettling happened. In a creepy font, a message appeared on the screen. "I know what you did." My heart raced, and a wave of unease washed over me. The screen returned to its usual state, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. I decided not to press my luck any further. I cancelled my order and hurried out of the restaurant. That night, I grabbed food from somewhere else, trying to forget the eerie encounter. But the mystery would linger in my mind. Fast forward a few weeks, and I found myself back in the same area during the day. Feeling a bit more courageous, I decided to revisit the same McDonald's, driven by curiosity. I walked in, but something was immediately off. The electronic touchscreens I had used on my previous visit were nowhere to be found. Instead, I walked up to the counter, where an employee asked if I'd like to place an order. It was then that I couldn't help but ask about the missing touchscreens. The employee's response stunned me. He claimed that they had never had touchscreen ordering at this location. I was taken aback because I knew for a fact that this was the same place I had visited just a few weeks prior. I tried to explain this to him, but he seemed adamant that it had never been the case. Leaving the McDonald's that day, I was left with more questions than answers. What had happened during my previous visit? Had I stumbled upon some sort of glitch in the Matrix, or was there something more mysterious at play? To this day, the mystery remains unsolved. And I'm left wondering about that eerie message on the touchscreen and the strange denial from the McDonald's staff. As a female, my first job at McDonald's was a significant milestone in my life. On this particular evening, just a few days into my new role, I was assigned to mop the floors. It was a busy weeknight, and after the dinner rush, I finally got a chance to start cleaning. I began by mopping around the front of the restaurant and gradually worked my way towards the back. As I approached the back of the restaurant, nearing the end of my task, I noticed something unsettling. There was a man sitting alone in the back corner. As I mopped closer to him, he greeted me with a simple, "Hi." I politely replied, but then he asked a question that sent shivers down my spine. He wanted to know what time I was getting off work that night. I hesitated for a moment, but then informed him that I would be finishing my shift soon. Feeling a bit uneasy, I continued mopping, hoping to finish quickly. The man persisted, asking what I had planned after work. To avoid any further conversation, I fibbed, saying I was heading to a friend's house, which was, in fact, a lie. But I couldn't shake the eerie feeling he gave me. As I continued my work, I could feel his eyes on me. The man's gaze never wavered, and he seemed fixated on my every move. This unsettling situation was beginning to overwhelm me, but I pushed through, determined to complete my task. Finally, I finished mopping and was allowed to go home. I breathed a sigh of relief as I left the restaurant, noticing that the man remained seated in the corner. Fortunately, he didn't follow me or make any attempts to approach me. I rushed home and prepared for bed, as it was a school night, and by 10 p.m., I was in my room watching TV. About an hour later, I began to feel incredibly drowsy and decided to turn off my bedroom light. But as the room plunged into darkness, something caught my eye. A shadow on the other side of my bedroom window. My heart raced as I realized there was a person outside my window. In a state of sheer panic, I screamed as loudly as I could. My parents rushed into my room to find me in a state of terror. I explained what was happening, and my dad immediately went outside to confront the intruder. Sadly, the man had disappeared by the time my dad got there, leaving no trace. My mum called the police, and after their arrival and a thorough discussion, we decided to visit the McDonald's the next day to address the situation. Fortunately, I never encountered that man again, but the fear and uncertainty lingered. I contemplated quitting my job at McDonald's after this terrifying incident, but in the end, I decided to stick with it for 2 more years. This remains the scariest story from my time working there. A reminder that sometimes, even in the most ordinary places, you can encounter something truly unsettling.